Namaste, myself Diksha. In this class, we are going to deal with a brief discussion on physiology of sense organ and a brief discussion on anatomy of eye. First of all, we know humans have 5 sense organs. What are they? Our eyes, ears, nose, tongue and skin. What is sense organ first of all? They can be defined as a group of specialized cells which receive stimuli. I'll repeat. They are a group of specialized cells which receive stimuli can be defined as sense organs or receptor cells. They are of common occurrence from coelentrates to chordates including protozoans. Most of the organism they receive and respond to more than one stimuli. Some of the organism respond and receive only one stimulus. Multicellular organisms respond to various external and internal environmental factors. A detectable change in an external or internal environmental factor which results in increase in the physiological activity or which brings about response can be defined as stimulus. A detectable change in external or internal environment which brings about an increase in the physiological activity of human or which brings about response can be defined as stimulus. Then what is response? It is an action which is evoked within an organism in turn or in return to stimulus. I'll repeat, an action which is evoked within an organism in return to stimulus can be defined. A reaction to stimulus can be defined as a response. So as I said, for a response, we need stimulus. Now I'll give you an example. Yes. Did you close your eyes? Yeah. Now, the bright light rays was stimulus. And you closed your eyes and that was your response. Now, dealing with a brief discussion on physiology of sense organ, let us consider a stimuli. And that stimulus can be you are sitting simply and you are hit by your sibling or your friend. Stimulus. What happens? There will be a physiochemical change in the receptor cells, change in discharge pattern of sensory nerve cells, activation of nerve cells with central nervous system, activation of efferent neurons. What are these efferent neurons? These are the neurons which brings information or carries information from central nervous system to other parts of the body. Now what is the information? You are being hit by your sibling or your friend. And that information is being carried by sensory nerve cells to the central nervous system. And from the central nervous system, it is carried to other parts of the body by efferent neurons. What happens later? There is change in physiochemical properties, which is innervated effectors like muscle contraction, glandular secretion, etc. Glandular secretion? Yes, there will be rushing of hormones like epinephrine or your adrenaline. And as a response, you hit your sibling or friend back. And that is your response. Physiology of sense organ is clear. Okay, now, yes, we have already completed what are sense organs, what is stimulus, what is response, and a brief discussion on physiology of sense organ. Now, further what we'll do is, we'll study about anatomy of human eye. A brief discussion on anatomy of human eye, which is very much required to study or to understand physiology of eye. Without anatomy, studying physiology is really difficult. So let us see the anatomy of eye now. Okay, now let's have a brief discussion on anatomy of eye. Generally, human eye is compared to a camera. Why? I'll tell you in later part. The human eye, it has an outer fibrous layer, middle vascular layer and inner nervous layer. The outer fibrous layer, it's again differentiated into anterior cornea and posterior sclera, which are marked in blue. Yes, it has been differentiated into anterior cornea and posterior sclera. This sclera, it is a tough membrane. It protects and maintains the shape of the eyeball. And it also provides space for the eye ocular muscles. This sclera, again, it provides space for eye ocular muscles. The optic nerve posteriorly it comes out of the eye through the foramen, and that is also again through the sclera membrane. Optic foramen, it's present on the sclera membrane itself. So these are the sclera. This is regarding sclera. Now dealing with cornea, the same outer fibrous layer is continued as cornea, and this cornea, it is a transparent and fibrous. It covers the iris. This, it is convex and it is curved, and it allows the light to enter into it and the light to focus onto the lens due to its curved or convex shape. So this is regarding your outer fibrous layer. I have said about sclera as well as cornea. So done with outer fibrous layer. Moving on to middle vascular layer. As the name itself suggests, the middle vascular layer, it is highly vascularized. It is made up of choroid cells. This layer, it is dark brown in color due to the presence of melanocytes. And whenever the light falls onto the retina, it stimulates the neurons, and the remaining light, it is absorbed by this choroid cells, and it prevents internal reflection. So this is regarding middle vascular layer. The thickest ciliary body are present on either side, and it arises from the anterior margin of the retina on either side. Yes, the thickest ciliary body arises from anterior margin of the retina on either sides. It is made up of ciliary muscles and ciliary processes. The ciliary muscles, it helps in changing the thickness of the lens. The ciliary muscles, it helps in changing the thickness of the lens, and that itself is called as accommodation. So what is accommodation? It is the ciliary muscles, it helps in changing the thickness of the lens, and that is known as accommodation. The muscles or the epithelial cells of the ciliary process, it secretes aqueous humor into the anterior chamber. The muscles the cells or the epithelial cells of the ciliary process, it secretes aqueous humor into the anterior chamber, and this is present in between the lens and the cornea. Yes, in most like elasmobranch, teleost, reptiles, amphibians, the lens can move for accommodation, but in birds, mammals, and some of the reptiles, the muscles contracts, and it brings about change in the curvature of lens and thereby accommodation. Okay, the space behind the lens, it is filled with a semi-liquid substance, and it is known as a vitreous humor. As I mentioned before, both the humor, that is aqueous humor and vitreous humor, both the humors, they help in maintaining the pressure within the eye and also prevents the collapse of eye. So now coming to iris. The iris, it is a colored visible portion of the eyeball. It usually appears blue, black, brown or grey in color. This iris, it is circular, made up of circular and radiating muscles, and a pupil at the center. It lies in the inner margin of the ciliary process, and yes, as I said, it has pupil at the center. It allows or it maintains the amount of light that enter into the pupil. In the bright light, the iris contracts and the pupil also constricts, narrows, and in the dark light, it is vice versa. So the pupil constriction and dilation, it is maintained by parasympathetic nerve and sympathetic nerve. The iris, and it lies in between the lens and the cornea. Yes, as I said, the pupil dilation and the constriction, it mainly depends upon the intensity of light, and it is controlled by parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve. The outer layer of the retina, it is non-nervous and it is pigmented, whereas the inner layer, it is sensitive, light sensitive, and it has a fovea, that is nothing but the depression on the retinal membrane, which has major number of cones or high number of cones, and it is the region where high visual activity takes place. So this is regarding the anatomy of eye. Now I'll tell you why eye is like a camera, or why eye is compared to a camera. The thin cornea, or the thin transparent cornea, it allows the light to pass through it and focus onto the lens due to its curvature or the convexity which is present in the front. The light then it passes through the pupil and then to the lens. The iris which is present, it maintains the amount or intensity of light that need to be passed through the pupil. The suspensory ligament or the ciliary process, it helps in adjusting the thickness of the lens for accommodation, just like the camera being adjusted to focus onto the far off or nearby object. The lens focuses the light onto the retina, which is a film, and the image formed is inverted and then reversed. Whenever the light falls onto the retina, it stimulates the neuron, and excess amount of light is absorbed by choroid cells of the middle vascular layer in order to prevent internal reflection. The rods and cones which are present on the retinal membrane, it shows some change, and it sends the nerve impulse to the visual center of the brain through the optic nerve. Then the brain, it turns up the inverted image to right side up, and the image formed will be just as such the object what we see, an erect image. So this is how an image is formed, which is very much similar to a camera, and that is why eye is like a camera. Okay, thank you for watching the video. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe, and please click on the bell icon button for more informative video. Thank you.